Welcome to the Krista Redpath Show, where sports take center stage and stories come to life. I'm your host, Krista, veteran analyst and passionate storyteller, bringing you weekly in-depth conversations and sharp analysis across the world of sports. The Krista Redpath Show, breaking down the game, elevating the story, and championing the female voice. Today's show is proudly brought to you by the Big Sky Conference, where experience is elevated, and Vertical Raise, your premier online fundraising platform. This week on the Krista Redpath Show, we're stepping inside the game from a perspective few truly understand, the whistle. My guest today is Bob Scofield, a veteran college basketball official who has been officiating D1 basketball since 1995, giving him 31 years at the highest level, working both men's and women's games across the country. Bob has worked NCAA Tournament games since 1999, has served on Final Four officiating staffs, and in 2008, became the only official in NCAA history to work both men's and women's tournament games in the same postseason. Bob's love for sports goes far beyond officiating. He was inducted into the Tucson Men's Senior Baseball Hall of Fame in 2010 and later honored by the Pima County Sports Hall of Fame, recognizing a lifetime devoted to athletics and the game. Today, this conversation is about Bob's journey from athlete to sports enthusiast to official and helping all of us better understand officiating from the inside. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thanks, Krista. Thank you very much.
It is such an honor to have you on my show. So, Bob, this interview is a bit of a pivot for me, but a much welcome pivot. So the last 10 episodes I've spent interviewing the head women's coaches from around the Big Sky Conference. And it's great that we get to hear the game from a completely different perspective. So before the whistle, before officiating, take us back to you as an athlete and a sports kid growing up in New Jersey. Where did your love for sports begin?
Well, my mom and dad were big sports players. I mean, my dad was a great athlete. People tell me my mom was really good, but back then there was not a lot of women's sports. And then my older cousin got drafted by the Braves in 1972. And there were 9 boys in our family. My uncle had 4 boys, my aunt had 3 boys, and then my mom and dad had me and my brother. And we only knew sports. So as we gravitated through New Jersey and where we grew up, sports was a way of life for us. And it's funny, when I still go back, people still tell me that my aunt was the greatest of all of us as an athlete. Because back then she dominated playing in men's leagues. And it's funny to hear that because, she would have been in her 90s now, but we always thought we were really good. And then when you hear that your aunt was better than you, it's kind of like, wow. But we just grew up. My dad was a cop. We were taught, not to talk back to referees and umpires. And that's how we grew up.
So that's the heart of the New York sports orbit. I mean, you got the Yankees, Mets, Knicks, Giants, all right during your formative years. So you graduated from Morris Knowles High School in Rockaway in 1976. What was the sports culture like in that area when you were growing up?
Well, back then, the Giants had just opened up the Meadowlands in 76. And my first girlfriend was part of the Wellington Maras family.
Oh,
so
wow.
My experience with the Giants then, the first game in the Meadowlands was October 5th, 1976. It was the Giants played the Cowboys. The Cowboys had Staubach and Dorsett. And I still remember being picked up in a limousine by the Mara family to go to the game. And that was my indoctrination into the Giants. And I just became a diehard Giant fan after that. Me and the young lady, that didn't last because, I get it. But, and then the Yankees were always, I was a baseball guy. I loved the Yankees. You either like the Giants or the Jets, the Yankees or the Mets.
Yes.
And the Knicks, and then the Nets came after the ABA. So, I was a Giants Yankee guy. And my cousins were all Mets and Jets on my uncle's side.
You also had those early 70s Knicks years, right? So I grew up, so I'm a little bit younger than you, Bob, but some of my formative memories, first was like when Mount St. Helens erupted, which is kind of random, but also the Boston Celtics. I grew up the Celtics were always on in our house. So I don't know if I really remember the 1981 championship, but I remember winning a lot and like watching Boston Celtics. But you were there with like Walt, Clyde Frazier, or around that Knicks time. Yeah. I mean, that was a really interesting, like, what was it like to be around that high level sports competition?
Well, here's the great thing. We lived in a town called Denville, New Jersey. And at the time, Bill Bradley lived in that town. And one of my father's jobs as a policeman was to make sure that no one bothered Bill Bradley. Now,
that's great.
And Bill Bradley was, he turned out to be a U.S. Senator. He was a Rhodes Scholar. Mm-hmm. But every Sunday, I would go to Mars Catholic High School and rebound for Bill Bradley because my dad would say, let's go, you got to go rebound. So that's really where I learned how to shoot a basketball was from Bill Bradley. And, back then jump shots weren't a big thing, and the Knicks had Clyde,
Willis Reed, Dave
DeBusschere,
mm-hmm.
Bill Bradley, Phil Jackson came off the bench with a guy named Dick Barnett. So Bradley would come in and he would shoot 1,000 free throws. He was a lifetime 92% shooter, one of the greatest free throw shooters of all time. But he taught me so much about, it would just be me and him in the gym. And he just taught me about how to be smart on the basketball court. I was not a great student. I was not a very good student in school. But one thing I could do, I could sit there and listen to Bill Bradley for an hour and a half, 2 hours, while he was just shooting free throws. And that's really where I learned.
So at that point, were you just focused on competing, or did you already enjoy seeing things from a broader lens?
No, I just wanted to compete. Practice was practice, right? You had to practice to play. It's a lot different now. We had coaches that hit you in the head. We had coaches that would grab you by the shirt. You can't do that anymore. But discipline was important in our family. My father would always tell us, I'm not your coach. I'm your father. I'm not going to ever say anything anywhere near your coach. They're your coaches. They're the ones putting in the time with you. I'm your dad. Okay. He would tell us after the game what he thought, but never during a game. You would never hear my father say a word, ever.
So how did officiating first enter your life, Bob?
So after my rough experience in college, after I got asked to leave,
You can elaborate on that. You can go ahead and elaborate on that.
No, I really don't want to elaborate on it. So I got done. I came back home, and my dad said, okay, now what are you going to do? And I said, well, he goes, no, I got this figured out for you. And he put me in the U.S. Navy. I went down to the recruiting office, and this guy said to me, hey, what'd you do? And I go, what do you mean, what did I do? He goes, that policeman only brings people in that are into drugs, have killed somebody, that just need to get away. I go, that's my dad. He goes, well, it's nice to see he treats everyone the same. He goes, tomorrow morning you're going to Chicago for boot camp. And I'm like, tomorrow? He goes, yep, you ready? I go, I have no choice. So I went that day, came back 4 years later, and a guy that was when I started refereeing, the NCAA had an age limit of 57 years old. You could not referee for the NCAA if you were over 57. There was a guy in New Jersey, his name was Ray Bucky Chapman, and he sued the NCAA. He was 57 years old. He had just done the Penn State, Georgia Sugar Bowl. And that was his last game because of age. He sued the NCAA. Just so happened he lived in Denville, and that's how I got into officiating. I started doing football, and then I was like, I played football through junior high. I was always small. My brother was a football guy. So I said, well, after football, I'll go do basketball. And then I just got lucky. What parts of being an athlete helped you most when you picked up a whistle? People knew me when I was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I didn't get yelled at like another younger guy that was less known as me, per se. And unfortunately, I took advantage of some of that. I used that as, like, hey, when I first started refereeing, my goal was if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best high school referee I can be. And Bucky told me one day, he goes, hey, you want them talking about you, good or bad, you want them talking about you. So in football, I was given sideline warnings before they were even common. And then when I got to basketball, I was given technical fouls for people just being nice, just because I'm like, I want them to know me. And that's really how I got found.
So what surprised you most about officiating when you first started out?
How little people actually know about the game.
Isn't that interesting?
Fans are, and Missoula is a great example of this. When you grow up outside New York City, there's 10,000 high schools, there's 500 colleges. Missoula, Montana is the Grizz. Bozeman, Montana is the Bobcats. That's all people know. They don't know other schools unless they went to a big school and they come back or whatever. And you just forget that this is their life.
It's a big deal.
Montana Grizzlies, and they're at every game. Football, basketball, volleyball, they're at everything, which is, you need those people. But you have to remember, they only see one color, whatever color the Grizz are wearing.
So a lot of people, Bob, try officiating, though, and they don't stay with it. Like, what motivated you to stay with it?
Well, at the time when I started, I was working for the post office. I was just trying to make some extra money. Mm-hmm. And I did it. And then I kind of got the bug. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to go as high as I can. So I got into college football. I was doing college football in the RMAC. And then the Big Sky hired me in basketball. And my job told me at the post office, hey, you can't be gone all this time. You got to pick. And I was like, well, you get one football game a week. If you have 11 weeks, that's 11 games. In basketball, I could do 100 games, 80 games. So it was a business decision.
So you began officiating D1 basketball in 1995. Like, what stands out about those early years? Just lots of travel, earning your way. Did you really connect with the Big Sky Conference?
Well, the Big Sky was the one that gave me my break. Marla Denham was the boss. And when she got the job, I was working for her at junior college in Arizona. So it was kind of a nice fit for me. I was rated, we used to get rated junior college here. My first year in that league, I was rated like 6th. And then I got up to the top. So it was kind of like, I always thought if she got a job, I would go with her. So I did. And then the first year I was in the league, I got like 4 games. Mm-hmm. And then the second year I got like 10. And that was when I only worked for the Big Sky. And then in 98, I got like 15 games. And, I see my schedule going up. And then 99 hits. And a guy named Steve Goodman, who was a senior referee in the league, was working a Pac-10 game at Washington State. Walking out of the locker room, he blew out his knee. Not a season-ending injury, career-ending injury. So she had all these games. I still remember she called me. We didn't have cell phones. Super Bowl Sunday, she called my house and she goes, hey, I got 10 games for you. And that's how she goes, hey, see if you can get off work. And I went to my boss that Monday and said, hey, I got a break. This is my break. I said, I'll do whatever it takes to do it. So if you tell me you want me working 10, 12 hours, I'll do whatever, but I need these games. And his name was Bob Ramsey. And he said, you know what? You've worked hard to do this. You go. I'll take care of you. And that was my break. So
by 1999, though, you're working NCAA games. So what does it take for an official to earn that level of trust to get to the NCAA tournament, Bob?
A little bit of luck. Unfortunately, politics run everything. I was in the post office and I'd be wondering why a guy got promoted over me. Politics is politics. And politics are more a part of the tournament because now there's 110 officials that go. Mm-hmm. To say that they're the best 110 referees is probably not a true statement. But somebody gives you a chance, and then it's how you get along. The coaches run the game. Mm-hmm. And you'll notice certain referees never see some coaches in the NCAA tournament because of backlash or something. And now when these coaches are making $1 million, $2 million a year, it's not like 1995 when I started, when all the big sky coaches were making less than $100,000.
It's a different landscape now.
Different landscape, totally.
So in 2008, you became the only official to work both men's and women's. And after that, you had to make a decision, right? And you chose women's basketball. But what went into that decision, and what did you love about the women's game that made it clear to you wanted to stay on that path?
Well, you know what? It's the players, first of all.
Players like me.
Well, no, I still remember your number 21 foul in all the game. I remember that. But the people around women's basketball were just nicer people. Men's basketball, there's also a bigger part of the pie. The NCAA men's basketball tournament is a $2 billion entity. The women's tournament is nothing near that. The pressure of those men's games, and I only worked the Big Sky, and that was one of my big things. I couldn't get in another league, because they would always say, he's a little chunky, or, there's this myth about a referee should look like Adonis. Well, there's referees that look like Adonis who can't referee a bit, but they look the part. So then you have a guy like me who's, I'm just different, right? It's crazy how some people label that as, oh, he's not athletic, he can't do this. Okay. And I just went with it.
So to give a little context going into the 2016 Women's Final Four, and I want to ask you if this was the pinnacle or if this was a peak that you were really searching for. So in 2016, the Women's Final Four was in Indianapolis, right in the heart of the Connecticut dynasty era. So that Final Four featured UConn, Syracuse, Oregon State, and Washington, and the championship ended up with UConn defeating Syracuse. But you were a part of that Final Four officiating staff for that event. Bob, take us through that.
Well, it was interesting because the year before, I was picked to do both. And I was sitting on my patio, and I got a phone call from Mary Struckhoff, who was the head of the NCAA Women's. And her exact words to me were, "Why did you not tell us you were doing men's basketball?" And I said, "You're right down the hall from Hank Nichols, who was the men's boss. I can't even believe I'm having this conversation, honestly." So she said to me, she goes, "You know what? I'm pulling you out of the women's tournament." I said, "You do whatever." So that year I went to Chicago, did Kansas, Niagara. I know I'm only going to get one game because, I'm just a one conference guy, but I'm going to get one game. So I get Chicago. I'm in Chicago at the United Center. I got Kansas, Niagara. It was the year the Niagara coach's wife or mother was fighting cancer. It was the biggest first round game of the tournament. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then in 2009, I get picked again to do both. And I'm waiting for my phone to ring. She called me because I had reffed with her many years prior. And I said, "I don't get it. I proved that you can do both. I proved that you could do both. And why you're taking this out on me makes no sense." So I said, "I'm done." After this men's game, I was at the pond. I had UCLA, Mississippi Valley State. I said, after that game, I'm only going to do women. But those people held a grudge against me for years, which, I ain't even mad at. So the year I go 2016 is the reason we had 4 Pac-10 referees selected that year for Pac-12 because we had 2 teams. The East Coast they were nuts that 4 West Coast referees got that game.
That's right. Oregon State and Washington are in the Final Four.
Right. There were 2 of the 4 teams were West Coast teams, Pac-12 teams. So that year, June Courteau said, "You know what? We're going to take 4 Pac-12 refs." And, the Final Four is nice, but it still doesn't beat the regular season or the conference tournaments. The conference tournaments are the most fun.
Is it fun just following the teams and watching the success, or you have to kind of step outside of that lens, right?
Well, in the Big Sky has always been family oriented.
Very much. It's a relationship league. I mean, I say that as the commentator. I'm one of the main analysts, and I feel like I know everyone on a first name basis, and I love that about the league.
Yeah, and when Marla had the league, it was family first. Mm-hmm. And you know as well as I know, my wife comes, Tyler's mom and dad. We just have a good group.
We do.
So when Violet got the job, she's like, I like that. I like that. You know, while they're in Vegas, you know, we're in Boise. Mm-hmm. But even Violet in Vegas, you know, everybody goes to dinner together. We're not out on an island, you know, and it's like we're on the road so much. You know, I can't tell you how many nights I've sat in the depot by myself or the Montana Club having dinner by myself because my partners aren't there yet or something. And that's what officiating should be. But what happened is, you talk about NIL and portal and all that stuff, officiating income, people don't have jobs anymore. This is all they do. And they make a living. So with that goes, you know, hey, I'm tired. You know, I've got a game in ball. You know, it's hard.
It is hard. It's hard being on the road.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, I want to go into your awards and honors. And before we go any further, I want to give listeners a little context. The Tucson Men's Senior Baseball League is a highly competitive adult baseball league with dozens of teams across multiple different age divisions, but it's real baseball. Standings, playoffs, rivalries. You were inducted into that league's Hall of Fame in 2010. What did that honor mean, especially knowing it recognized you first as an athlete and competitor?
Well, it was really nice because at 50 years old, I was playing with a wood bat and I was playing center field.
I love it. I love it.
Big ballparks. I'm talking High Corbin, Keno. We'd go to Phoenix and play. I mean, you never lose the competitiveness as an athlete. You know, like I go bowling with my grandkids. You're not going to beat me. You're not putting bumpers up. You're going to bowl the right way. You know,
I love that.
And you don't lose that.
Right.
You don't. And in officiating, it's the same way. You don't lose that you want to do the best you can. Every day you go out there.
So for listeners that may not be familiar, the Pima County Sports Hall of Fame honors athletes, coaches, and contributors who've made a lasting impact on sports in Tucson, Arizona, and beyond. So you were inducted into that Hall of Fame in 2022 as a referee. But what did that recognition mean to you, Bob, knowing it reflects both your local roots and your national officiating career?
Well, you know, for 25 years, me and the guy who run the NCAA men's, Chris Redpath, we did summer camps here for 25 years, helping referees. And
so impressive.
Goal was not to make a lot of money, to help people. And next thing you know, we made an agreement we would never charge more than $150 for people to come. And then we were getting people from Seattle, Miami, Chicago, New Mexico. And it was a great feeling. And that year we both got into the Pima County Hall of Fame. And the people that we saw there that were thanking us for what we've done for their kids and, you know, what we contributed. But I still thought the greatest thing that I've done in my career was during COVID, I fed first responders for 26 weeks. Every Wednesday, instead of playing golf, I went out and fed first responders. You know, my wife is a sweetheart, and she was like, hey, you know, you need to help with the community. Well, what can you do? And kind of, I didn't know what to do. And she goes, come on, you're pretty smart. You can figure something out. So I decided, being a policeman's son, this was during the George Floyd situation. So policemen were not looked at very good. So I never really dealt with the Tucson police, but I went to firehouses and hospitals and only went to 3 local restaurants trying to keep local places thriving. And that was probably the biggest thing that I did. And the people at the Pima County, they were just, they couldn't believe that. That's like, you know, why would you not give back to your community? But a lot of people don't.
So, Bob, when you look at all those honors and how community-oriented you are, what do they say to you about the arc of your sports life? Well,
you know, people know me. People only know me through my sports life. They really don't know me as a person because, come on, you've been to plenty of my games. You've seen me when I reffed, when you played, even though I was a lot crazier when you played, in the late 90s. But a lot of people just see that aura of me on the court yelling at someone or giving a technical foul. That's just my job. But they don't know the real me. And that's the fun. Even the other day when I got hurt at Missoula, there's a woman that sits behind the basket that's been going to Lady Grizz games for 30 years. And even she asked me if I was all right.
Bob, it was scary. It was scary when you went down. But I do think there are so many fans, you're absolutely right, that really care. And everyone was, J.C. Wida, who incredible part of taking care of all the athletes and our officials too. It was like a collision that just was really tough. Yeah.
And JC's great, and that's the other thing. Dennis Murphy texts me, all the people in Missoula that I know, by the time I got to the airport, I had so many texts just from Missoula people saying, hey, are you all right? And luckily I was.
So that I want to kind of let that lead into our next segment about misconceptions. Like from your perspective, what's the biggest misconception fans and players have about officiating?
That they think we care who wins.
Okay, that's good.
We really have no vested interest except just trying to do the best we can.
That's great. That is, they do. It is funny to see things through a fan's perspective and you hear them yelling things, that just, and here's one of them. Let's talk about this myth. Over the back. There's no such thing as over the back. Now, as a commentator, when I hear that, there's no such thing. So what are officials actually like judging and rebounding positions? Break it down for our listeners.
Well, you know what? First of all, when the over the back thing happens, the person under the basket, the referee under the basket probably has the worst look at that play. Even
so
though it's
true.
Right in front of them.
Right.
Because how can you see through the person that's boxing out the person behind them?
Right.
It's kind of like if you can't see the ball, how do you blow your whistle, right? So the center and the trail official have to be very active and on rebounding, especially on long rebounds. That's where we see most of our problems. With Violet as our new boss, we get plays all the time that shows we're going to miss plays. Mm-hmm. The object is don't miss plays at critical times of the game. A play you miss 2 minutes into the game isn't the same as a play you miss it with 2 minutes left when the score is tied. It's those kind of things that you've got to try to navigate through of how do I reset after I know I made a mistake? We all make mistakes. It's like I tell the kids during the time, during the pregame, respect us, respect each other. We don't yell at you when you throw the ball away. Don't yell at us when we miss a play.
Right. So true.
That's not cool.
Well, I know that I played for Robin Selvig, who would have never allowed us to talk to the officials, or if I did, or if I gave you a look, I was getting in trouble after the game. So there is some of that too with the coaches making sure, hey, you don't need to be talking to him, but it is okay if you go ask a question in a non-emotional way, or would it need to be from the captain?
Oh, no. Anybody should be able to talk to any of us because I tell people this all the time. I really don't care what the coaches think of me. All I care is about what those kids think of me, because if the kids think you're doing a good job, that's all that matters. Coaches are, some are losing games. They're fighting for their jobs, their contracts up, and in today's day in the world, these coaches are making, a lot of money, a lot more money than they used to. And now you lose 5 games in a row and you're last year, your contract. Sometimes I think us as referees, we forget that. Like, hey, this guy's fighting for his job. He should light us up because he loses another game. He might be done.
Very true. So, okay. So back to this over the back though. So what is it, Bob? Is it verticality playing? Like, is it displacement? If you are taller and you jump up and you get the rebound and you don't displace anyone, it's not over the back.
It is not over the, and displacement is the key word.
Okay.
If you displace the person boxing you out, it's a foul.
Okay. So these are good tips for me as an analyst too. Well, I'm always texting you, Bob, tell me points of emphasis, help me out here. But I think it's really good for our listeners to hear this.
Yeah. I think, I'm a little different, but I think, when you have get-togethers during the early season with your season ticket holders, you should bring in a local referee that works Division I to talk about basketball.
And rules. Right.
And points of emphasis. The other night, I won't say the school, but they're yelling at me. I'm at the mic reviewing a play, and people are screaming at me. She was in the circle. Well, first of all, it's not a circle. It's a restraining area. And we don't have that in women's basketball. And this guy is screaming at me. And I'm kind of a smarty pants, and I'm sitting there kind of laughing. And I'm staring at him because now I can't even talk. I'm like, you're a dummy. But they're uneducated. They don't know the rules. Like in women's basketball, we don't have 5 seconds when you're dribbling, right? Closely guarded. Mm-hmm. You still hear that. Dude, go back to bed, go read a book, do something else. Don't come to the game because you're killing it.
That's great. Okay, so I want to bring up this game. There was something that happened earlier this year in November. It was Duke ended up getting beat by West Virginia. Mark Kellogg was the coach.
Oh, yeah, Mark, yeah.
Yes. And so just before halftime, some sort of altercation broke out between Jordan Wood and West Virginia's Jordan Harris. They were taunting each other, going back and forth. But West Virginia's entire bench came out on the floor, and they were ejected for the bench rule. And it was kind of an interesting game because West Virginia ended up beating Duke with only 5 players. So I think that's what piqued my interest. But have you ever had to deliver a bench rule and kick out like an entire bench?
I have only, in my career, the Division I career, had one bench clearing brawl. It was Northern Colorado men with Tad Boyle.
Wow.
And we finished 4-on-3. And the worst part of that was the next night I was there for a women's game. And everybody was hanging the fight on me because I was there again. Me and a guy named John Weeks, who you would remember.
I do remember John Weeks. Rest in peace. What an amazing official.
Right, we were together for those 2 days.
Yes.
And John was such a nice guy, right? Very, very polite. And me, I'm easy to yell at. And those administrators were still yelling at me the next day. And I'm like, you know what? Sorry. And we didn't have video then. It was before video. So we got together and I'm like, you know what? We got to just figure out who came off the bench and who didn't. So we ended up throwing everybody out.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was crazy.
That is amazing. Okay, so now I will admit to you, Bob, as a player, I never met a referee that I liked, and you may have fouled me out of a few games, but becoming a color analyst gave me an entirely new perspective and a respect for officiating. Like when you hear former players like me say this, does it make you smile a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? One of the greatest things is like when I travel with my wife and we run into kids I refereed. Shanae Abumake, telling my wife, I love Bob's the best. I love him. Not during the game she didn't. Her and her sister were a handful. But like 2 years ago, we were in Boise, Idaho. During the summer, we were looking for a place possibly. And all of a sudden I hear this girl say, Mom, he's here. And I'm like, who's this? So I turn around the corner. It was Claire Fauché that played at Portland State. Her mom and dad were with her, and they were just so happened to be in the same store that me and my wife were. I have not seen Claire since she graduated from Portland State, who, in my opinion, was one of the top 5 point guards ever in the Big Sky.
Great player.
Ever. She was a great player. She led the nation in assists the 1 year. And her dad would be at the games, and he was a big, big ranch guy, probably about 6'5", probably 280, and he would just wear us out. But after the game, he would always come down, hey, Bob, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And when I saw him, he was like, oh, geez, it's Bob. And we had just the nicest little convert. But it's funny how a lot of times you walk around without your referee shirt on, nobody notices. But some of these kids, it's like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
So what do you wish players understood earlier about officials and the job that they're asked to do?
It's not easy. It's very demanding. And we are held accountable for our mistakes, especially with violence. We are held accountable. And the only way you can get better is to be told when you're wrong. Because the days of going in, like in Missoula the other night, as soon as I got in the locker room, I could pull up and see what happened to me. It's instantaneous. And the video does not lie about anything.
So true. You're definitely held to another standard, right? And I feel that with being a color analyst. Everything that I say, I mean, it can be taken out of context, or it can be taken and fans can go with it. Coaches, players.
Oh, yeah. And, the other thing, players need to understand that an issue in one game should not carry to the next game. It's over. That game's over. We're new day. And players sometimes, they see certain referees that they've had incidents with. Mm-hmm. They can't get over it. And I always tell kids, best friend, worst enemy. You tell me what you want me to be. I can do either.
Right.
But if you want me to be your worst enemy, you'll pay. And a technical foul is just another foul. I mean, I've had 2 ejections this year. Kids aren't like when you played. They have so much, the NIL, it's
changed the trajectory of the game.
It's ruined mid-majors. It has ruined mid-major basketball. Because a kid in the Big Sky has a good year, they get $100,000 to go sit on a bench in the Power 4 and never play.
Well, it's so interesting, Bob, because as I preview teams too, I don't even bring up their year anymore, because it's like coaches are re-recruiting their own roster every single year. Does it matter if she's a sophomore? Because the likeliness of her blowing up in the Big Sky and staying, I mean, it is really difficult to keep players. And we've seen that, right? We've seen the shift, and we've seen teams lose players, and it's tough. It's definitely an entirely different look now.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that it might not happen in my career because I'm towards the end, but I just hope the Power 4s go on their own. Go do your thing.
Right.
But leave these other kids, just leave them alone. I mean, it's just, But once you give I was in a big union job, right? Once you give somebody something in this world, you ain't getting it back.
Very true.
And even if Congress or whatever, congressional stuff happens, they ain't giving up that money they're making. It's impossible.
So true. And it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back now.
Yeah.
Right.
And, they're like pampered suburbanites, right? It's bad. You have a full education and now you want to get paid and you're going to tell them when you can practice. Right. I mean, I hear stories from people every day, every city I go to, and I just sit there like, wow, are you kidding me?
Interesting times we're living in, Bob. Well, I have loved this hour, and I just want to tell you, I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for your leadership in our league, for taking me under your wing, helping me out as an analyst, but also just, continuing to be open about this. I think it's just so incredible that you came on here, and I know I have a lot of players and coaches that are going to listen to this, but do you have anything you want to add, Bob?
You know what? The Big Sky has been really good to me. I can tell you that. I've had a wonderful career. I think they told me that I've done 13 Big Sky Women's Championships in a row. I've done 15 overall. I did 5 men's championships. On the national stage, I won Final Four. And to people, that's really important. But that's not the most important thing to me. If they label me as a mid-major referee for my whole career, I'm okay with that. I really am. And like I said, I love the Big Sky. I've met so many good people over the years that when I retire, that's what I'll miss. I won't miss the games. I sure won't miss flying into Missoula at midnight for a Saturday game or whatever, or both. The travel's hard, but there are so many really good people. And the relationships that I've built in the Big Sky, I cherish. Even when Fullerton suspended me, I still like them. It's okay.
Well, thank you, Bob. This has been insightful, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Take care, Krista.
This is Hoop Hits with Hall of Fame coach Carla C.T. Taylor, former Weber State standout and the program's all-time winningest coach. Each week, C.T. joins me to break down the matchup storylines and rising stars shaping women's basketball across the Big Sky, and proudly brought to you by the Big Sky Conference. Welcome in, C.T.
Thank you. Man, oh man, we have lots to talk about today.
Well, C.T., we got to start with your calls, which were both phenomenal. I listened to both of them. I went back and watched. It was later because my son was playing at Butte. But how exciting was that to call these two games?
Both games were, it's so, I keep saying this, but it's so true when you finally get to see these new teams in person, first starting with the University of Montana and the Lady Grizz coming in again without Matt Koenig, and just had a huge game by Avery Waddington with 20 points. And the last two possessions she scored against the Wildcats. And, heartbreaking loss for Weber State, a 1 point loss, 51-50. Amanopu having another double-double. But what a game. It was so fun, back and forth. And, the Lady Grizz come out on top and win their second straight game. And then go into Saturday and watching Montana State, the first half, Weber State played so well, kept it close. We're in the game. Lene Billy, their three-point specialist, finally gets back on track. She has 22 points in the first half. Montana State, playing well back and forth. And then Montana State, the third quarter, just kind of ripped it out of hand. And
they just went on a scoring surge. It looks like, they put up 30 points in that third quarter.
30 points in the third quarter. And Weber State didn't have an answer for it. But just fun to see them in person. And that Montana State team, I don't think we could give Coach Benford and their staff enough credit for how young they are.
Right.
She's playing freshmen and sophomores with 2 or 3 juniors thrown in there because she lost those seniors that decided to go elsewhere and transfer and go somewhere else. And it was fun to see them play. And yeah, just great time in the D Event Center.
Well, Montana State really bounced back because obviously I think the game of the week, and, Montana State gets not, upset by Idaho State, but I don't even want to say there's upsets at this point. No. Coach Sobolewski had Idaho State prepared for Montana State, and it was a game. I think you always have a target on your back when you're at the top, right? So all eyes are going to be on that game.
And everybody's bringing their best game against Montana State.
They are.
Idaho State, I was able to get home after my game that I call at Weber State to watch it because I knew it was going to be a good one because Idaho State has the most veteran team in the league with those returning 5 starters. So you have a team that Coach Sobolewski has them ready to play. He plays defense. It's so physical. And if you're not ready for that type of play, you have that young team of Montana State going in there. They've never played in Reed Gym. Mm-hmm. And Reed Gym, it's such a home court advantage. It's a hard place to go in and play. And credit ISU, they attacked the press, scored early, and got up early and were hitting threes. They were making layups. They were driving to the basket, scoring. And he had a lot of players off the bench that really contributed, along with Casey Spinks, who you have to talk about what Casey Spinks does. I love that kid.
I do too. She's been one of my favorites.
Hard. She's another one of my junkyard dogs.
She is.
She does the nitty-gritty, dirty work, rebounds, plays defense, gets after. And this year, she's improved on her scoring. So now she's just this all-around player. And your girl, Tasia Jordan, gets hurt.
I know. I was worried about that, but she can't. Yeah.
They play without Tasia Jordan.
Right. Casey Spink had a double-double. She had 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 steals. I just want to say that, Idaho State came out and really commanded their presence on the boards. They just killed the Cats on the glass. I think the final was 40-23. They had 2 players that really stood out. Casey Spink, obviously, but Piper Carlson also had 10 boards. So I felt like Idaho State still had the turnovers. They did. They had 27. Montana State does that to you, but they didn't lose their composure. And that was the difference is Idaho Idaho State was able to just hang with them. Over 1,000 fans in Reed Gym.
Just, it was rocking.
Yeah.
Reed Gym had to have been rocking.
Just a great environment. And, Seton got scoring from over 9 players. So he also, like you said, got some really good minutes from his bench. He had to, losing Tasia Jordan. I was concerned. Now, Tasia Jordan came back and played against Montana, and everything was fine there, but I was a little concerned.
I was concerned too, because to have them go ahead and continue shorthanded. I mean, they've lost Covella.
Yes, they have. Yes,
and then Tasia Jordan out for that game. You're like, ooh, injury, but she came back, and that's good.
It was a sizable win. I mean, 19 points. We're not talking about just a close game here. Is that Idaho State really came out and handed it to them?
It looked like to me, and I don't know because I wasn't there. I'm not the Montana State coach, but it looked like that's the first time they were kind of really shell-shocked with the physicality that ISU plays with, and weren't able to work through that. But I credit that to youth. I think about it. She's starting and playing significant minute freshmen who haven't seen that, even though they played a tough preseason and they played against really good teams in the preseason. It gets different in conference. And for Montana State, it doesn't hurt to lose one. You don't want to go into the tournament undefeated. Then you feel like the pressure. But even Coach Benford said when she came into the event center, you know what? Every team is going to bring their best game. We have a target on our back, and you got to be ready for that.
Definitely. Yeah. Taylor Cherrick is held without a field goal, CT, and we haven't seen that, right? I mean, she had 6 free throws, and she also, she influences the stat sheet. She had 5 steals, 5 assists, 8 rebounds. So it's not like she wasn't out there playing, but from an offensive standpoint, they have really leaned on her, and they weren't able to get that offense. And you got to credit Coach Sobolewski for having a game plan of putting her in a tough position, to not get into any kind of rhythm offensively.
Right. No, and again, ISU have the guards that can defend Cherrick and keep her in front of them and defensively. And so just really impressed with Idaho State in that game, because it was watching it. I only got to watch the second half, but watching it, they just dominated the game. And then I didn't get to see the game against U of M against the Lady Grizz, but I'm sure that win was so emotional. So you blow up all this energy and effort, and then you turn around and have to play 2 days later and a little bit shorthanded, and they just didn't have that pop that they had on Thursday night, which is unfortunate because that would have been huge for them to get both those wins at home. But credit to Grizz, 3rd straight win in a row, and they're on a roll. So
you have to give this Montana team some credit. I mean, they go down, they get a pretty big thumping in Bozeman, and then they have, 4 games in 7 days, and they've got NAU at home, and then they go on the road for 2 games and they win 3. They win 3 of those 4, and they're still
Monday,
playing
Thursday, Saturday. Yeah.
And they're still playing without Matt Koenig. And so I feel like now we're seeing some players really step in to various roles. I mean, Drea Wacker has just been incredible. The Melstone, Montana product. Class C, you got to love it.
She played well at Weber State as well. It was fun to watch her. I wanted her to foul so I could say it was a hack from Wacker.
Oh, that's good. She had 15 against Idaho State, but I think, Montana found their rhythm against Idaho State. They made 15 threes. Ray Ehrman also has been giving Montana great minutes. And then Avery Waddington has just come into her own. I mean, she's had 11.7 rebounds. We're seeing what one of the premier players in the league, stepping in to just playing good basketball, CT.
Well, you always talk about her. And I remember her from last year, but never really getting to see her play in person until Thursday. And she's so fun to watch. She is so dynamic, so mobile. She can shoot the 3. She can take it off the dribble, and she's so mobile and athletic. Just just an incredible player.
Well, and Montana's done a good job getting the ball in her hands, because for a while there, they weren't giving her good looks, and she's just got to be involved on the offensive end. So you got to credit Nate Harris. He doesn't play a lot of players. He makes it known that he's very different from other programs in that he's going to pick his top 7 or 8, and he's going to play them 35 to 40 minutes. I mean, Avery Waddington played all 41 minutes. She didn't come out at all. Yeah. And that's a lot to ask of a kid, going on 4 games in 7 days. So again, Montana coming up, they're still in the lower part of the standings, but a really good showing for them. Right.
A turnaround from their 0-for start. And that's, if they can continue that momentum, they'll just continue. But then you have Northern Colorado and Idaho, who they're just kind of the sleepy team that's just kind of sitting in the background. Northern Colorado, I don't know if that was their 6th straight win on Saturday, but they're 6. Northern Colorado 6-2, and Idaho 6-1. Their only loss at Montana State, and they're just kind of cruising along behind the scenes, and really both teams have the balance of offense, defense, inside players, outside players, and those two, along with Montana State, are going to make some noise the second half of the conference. I predict that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Idaho, because I feel like they really responded, CT, after losing to Montana State. They only, put up in the 60s for points. And Arthur Morera, that's not his style. I mean, this is one of our, our top offensive team in the league this year. Right. Lots of, weapons. And I feel like from there, they go ahead and really put up a lot of points against Weber State, 95.
The most they've scored this year.
Right. And then they beat Sac State, and then they also just come out and kind of hand it to Portland State. And so they right now are on a 4-game winning streak. But I think back to Arthur Morera, what he told me just about a month ago in our interview is that I don't want our team to be peaking in January.
He learned from that. I think he'll continue to push and work on things and get better and better, and then be ready for the tournament, right? And they're a team that is so deadly offensively. And different weapons, their leader, Hope Hossman, she had her first career double-double, 20 points, 12 assists.
Isn't that awesome?
Amazing.
Don't you love that? I mean,
just
12 assists. I mean, that is a stat right there. That is a stat we need to highlight and just stop and talk about. I mean, that is incredible.
Right. You're not only a scoring threat, but you're distributing, and you're making the players around you even better because of your ability to deliver the ball in the right place, right time.
Well, they had 9 players score in that game against Portland State. And I think a lot of those assists were points for Kira Gardner, because she finished with 19. Yeah. And it's been really great to see the 2 of those players, like Kira Gardner and a Hope Hassman, play together and play off of each other. Both transfers that came in that have just really found a home with Arthur Morera. I will say the other one that I've been super impressed with is Lorena Barbosa. She's their 6'4" true center. I mean, she's giving him just 15 to 17 minutes, but CT, she has 9 rebounds and 8 points. I mean, she's super effective.
And she runs the court. On that team, if you don't run the court, you're never going to be involved in their offense. And she runs the court rim to rim. Was really impressed with what she did when I watched the Weber State. She motors and gets to the boards, and it's hard to stop offensively when she gets the ball in the low block.
And Deborah Dos Santos, I mean, she, again, 9 rebounds, 8 points. She's been another one that just really gives offense off the bench. And so I think a key matchup this week, a game that needs to be featured, is Idaho versus UNC, because these two, to me, are really interesting. Because when I look at Coach Matteo, I also see she's got 4 players averaging over double figures: Nina George, Heather Bayman, Anaya Hall, and Tatum West. She's got some players. And then I also look at an Anaya Hall versus a Lorena Barbosa, 2 teams that have true centers, right? And Anaya Hall comes off the bench, but I do love that matchup.
They have two true post players. And so you have the post game it's going to be a battle between the 2 of them. And then you have both teams that have such great guards, speed, quickness, shooting ability. that, again, excited for that game.
So what was really cool, I was thinking back to my interview with Coach Matteo. Now I have all these facts, that come into my head of remembering that she said that when she came in to Northern Colorado, that Anaya Hall followed her. And she was actually going to go with Coach Matteo. And then when they found out that Coach Matteo got the UNC job, she's like, okay, well, I'm going with you. So it's been a player that she's developed. Right. And I think that's really neat to see. I also want to give a shout out. Tatum West, although she's had some up and down offensive games, I feel like her leadership and that 6'2" frame, I think she's a player, CT.
She's hard, because she can shoot out on the perimeter. She's a threat down low at the low block. Yeah. And she causes so many problems for teams to try to shoot over her when they're on the defensive end. I know, smaller players have a hard time going up against her and not being intimidated. And UNC ends up having a block party because they're so big. I mean, they are so big, so agile, and they're not letting anything come in the key that you don't earn.
Well, no. And so Erin Powell and Julia Riley, it's been kind of interesting because Krista Matteo starts those two, but then she doesn't always play them. She brings Heather Bayman and Anaya Hall off the bench. I feel like she starts with a really tall guard line. I mean, she's got Nina George and Gabby Fields 5'5" to 5'8", but then it's 6 feet, 6'2", 6'1", and I feel like she just spreads it, right? And she really looks to take advantage of that length early on in the game.
But then she brings in these monster post players that, she's got a good group. I'm excited for her to see how far they can go.
Yeah. And Tatum West, I mean, I look at her, she's averaging, just over 10 points a game, but also almost 9 rebounds a game. She's one of our only players in the league that statistically is in the very top for both points and rebounds. I always love that. When I see both of those categories and I see a player like that, she was the number 22 ranked recruit out of Texas. I did a little homework on her, and also she had 20 D1 offers. She had 20 D1 offers, and she's went with UNC, and I think that she was the reason why they beat DePaul earlier in the year. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really good matchup between Idaho and UNC this week.
Well, and her rebounding allows her to get a lot of offensive putbacks off offensive misses. So you see that, and you can't, if you don't box her out and get her out of the paint, she'll go up and get it and she'll put it back in. So she's just definitely a dynamic player.
So what we're seeing with the standings, CT, we got Montana State that's at the top 7-1 in conference play. Then Idaho at 6-1, UNC at 6-2, Idaho State at 5-3. And then we kind of see a little bit of a fall off. Sac State and Eastern right in that middle. Sac State's 4-3 and Eastern's 3-4. So you see those two teams. And then we've got, the bottom half, Weber State just trying to get that first win. And man, they were close against Montana.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaking loss. I'm sure Coach Jackson didn't sleep. I'm sure Gentile has had some sleepless nights because she's had some close games and just can't get it all put together. The team, you get consistent effort from Eminopu, and then guards, it's different. Lene Billy kind of went on a drought there and looked like she lost a little bit of confidence, and she looked like the old Lene Billy in the Montana State.
She did. She had 22.
She didn't hesitate. No hesitation. It was she was looking to shoot it, looking to score it, and she looked good. But they didn't get a lot of scoring out of anybody else, which is unfortunate. They just can't get everybody on the same page each game.
But that's why you're still playing these games. We haven't even made the turn yet. And so that's why I wanted to bring that up, is that Gentile Jackson, she's right there. And I mean, just even this 1 point loss to Montana, they have to have offense from her. They've got to get offense from Hannah Robbins as well consistently. But I think that's what Gentile Jackson is like. We're on the verge of putting 4 quarters of basketball together. And so I think you just can't count out. Weber might be at 0-8 right now, and they've lost 8, but you have to admire the fight in them. Because I am seeing no rolling over.
They're never out
no.
of the game. If they could take care of their turnovers, and a lot of them are turnovers that they do, they're just predetermining where they want to pass it, or they're just trying to pass it too quickly and not just valuing the basketball. Once they clean that up, they're going to be fine. They'll be all right.
They are. And so I just don't think there's a lot that separates the NAU, Montana, Portland State, and Weber State. When I look at the games and the closeness, and I see that, I think that it's anyone's second half of conference play.
Weber State at Eastern Washington, they were in the game most of the time. And Sac State, they didn't play well. But they'll get those teams at home next round.
Right. So Sac State and Portland State have to go up and battle the Montana schools. That's always a tough road trip, right?
Absolutely.
So Montana schools get to be home after, that away stretch. Idaho is at UNC, and then they get NAU at home, and then Idaho State versus Weber State on the road.
Yeah.
So
Saturday, the Wildcats go up and play the Bengals on Saturday. And then they have a home game on Monday.
Yeah, we have some of those Monday games, right?
I know, it's so weird. I was looking at the schedule. I'm like, I hope I have that on my calendar.
Well, CT, I am just loving where we're at. And I could just sit there and watch games all the time. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm following my son, and then I come home and I'm watching you.
You're busy mom. You're kind of a busy mom right now.
Yes, I am. And I'm calling a men's game in a couple weeks, which I've talked about. So I've been switching over to the men. I went to the Montana game on Saturday to kind of watch them. And then next week on my show, I have Joe Cravens on. So that should be so fun.
I know you're having Dancing Joe on.
I'm having Dancing Joe. So it's going to be
tonight. It'll be
right before us. Yeah. Bob Scofield. So and Bob, just a fantastic, insight into the officiating world, CT, and also just, his time with the Big Sky just spans so long. I mean, he fouled me out of games, and I haven't played for a really long time.
So I think he officiated almost the whole time I was coaching. I don't think he came in right at first, but I know he officiated a lot of my games. And I learned with Bob to just focus on my coaching and not bark at the officials, because that'll get you nowhere with Bob.
Well, and I realize that too. He fouled me out of a lot of games, and I just remember thinking, I'm going to get nowhere if I am jawing. Well, first of all, if I would have got caught jawing, Rob would have canned me. He would have taken me out. Exactly. It's like, you don't ever talk to the refs. Although he was a little crazy in the games, he was just as crazy with us as he was with the officials. Yeah, but he had some battles with Bob Scofield.
Well, I think we all did.
Yes.
But he's a great official. There's no question.
Yeah, he really is.
So loyal to the Big Sky Conference, and I think because of his loyalty, we've been able to keep a lot of really good officials in this league that could go to the bigger leagues and make more money. But because of Bob and his loyalty, he keeps those officials here with the Big Sky.
He had a bad ball up here in Montana.
I know, I saw
got
that.
Tripped.
I was so worried. I was texting him immediately because I was worried.
Well, it was definitely like one of those things where you can just go back and look at it. It's like timing where, it just happened where he went down. But his ribs are still sore. But he's still out there.
Got clipped by a player, went down.
Yes.
I worried that he hit his head.
Yes. Right.
He got back up and went off and came back and finished the game.
Yes. So Bob, he's a good one. So we have a lot of those in the Big Sky Conference.
I love Bob. There's Tyler.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many great ones there. Yeah.
Well, and really, CT, I've learned a lot about just being on the other side now with calling games and learning how challenging it is on the officiating side. So one thing that was great is we talking about people think fans, they aren't super educated, right? They don't really understand some of the calls and the rule changes.
There's rule changes all the time.
Yeah. So I have a ton of respect for the officials. And I believe that our league, the Big Sky Conference, is a relationship league. All of us get to know each other. And it's great to be able to text freely. Like I'm constantly texting the officials or, like Bob asking about points of emphasis for a game or what happened here. And so I think that's just so important that we can reach the officials and have that type of relationship.
Well, and it is relationships. It was so fun to I visited with Nate before the game. I even talked with Matt Koenig before the game and asked her how she was doing.
Oh, I bet she liked that. Yeah.
I hope, I just said, you don't come back too soon because they need you down the stretch and in the tournament. And then I love,
getting
Tricia
a chance. How was that? How was visiting with Tricia Binford?
It was so awesome to visit with her in Sunny. I mean, I've known Sunny my whole life, and she's been an associate head coach or an assistant for 37 years, and to be able to visit with Sunny, I love it when I get to see those guys.
She's tremendous. Sunny's just such a great coach.
Exactly.
And recruiter.
Their radio guy, Daniel, came from Carroll College from Rochelle, so I love that.
He loves Rochelle. And he does. He's talked to me about her, and I just really love his enthusiasm for Carroll College. I always think that's awesome.
He's cute. He's cute.
Okay, well, we covered a lot today. I could sit here and keep going with you, but I think we'll stop. And then next week.
We only have so much time, right?
That's right. So we will tune into the games this week and catch up next week. So thank you, CT. This segment is proudly brought to you by the Big Sky Conference and Vertical Rays. Thanks to Bob Scofield, official for the Big Sky Conference, for the insight and for taking the time with me today. And thanks to all of you for listening. This week's episode of the Krista Redpath Show is brought to you by the Big Sky Conference and Vertical Rays. Coming up next week, a great conversation with Joe Cravens, former Weber State head coach and Big Sky Conference analyst.